الصبح بدا من طلعته والليل دجى من وفرته.
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidil mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man tabi'ahum bi ihsan ila yawmiddin. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to welcome you to the second part of the Hajj workshop, which is dealing with health and halal in both Hajj and in Umrah. First of all, we must say Jazakallah to Mufti Wasim for that wonderful session this morning. I know it was a bit long, so I'll try my best, inshallah, to keep this session a bit shorter, inshallah, but these are very, very important aspects of the Hajj and of the Umrah as well, if we are doing that. Because, for example, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith narrated by Abdullah bin Abbas radiyallahu ta'ala an says, "Ni'matani maghbunun fihima kathirun minan nas, as-sihhatu wal-farag." There are two favors that many of the people squander. One of them is health, and the other one is free time. With regard to health, our health is very, very important. And especially when we are going on a journey like Hajj, it is important to, first of all, go in a healthy state as much as possible, as well as to maintain our health while we are there. And of course, as well, the other issue would be halal. Because we know that halal affects our worship. There are many ahadith that talk about the fact that, a person, if he consumes non-halal, his ibadah will not be accepted. And many other, punishments are there for that person who deliberately does not consume halal food alone. In the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Whosoever among you wakes up secure in his property, healthy in his body, and has his food for the day, it is as if he was given the entire world." Meaning that, these are really the important aspects of a person's life. That he has his food, his halal food, that he wakes up secure in his property, that he feels comfortable with what he owns, and that he is healthy. These are very, very important parts of our lives. So when we're going for Hajj as well, these are things that we need to consider. Of course, this morning we had all of the manasik and all of the rules that pertain to the Hajj. And these, of course, are very important because we want the Hajj mabrur. We want the Hajj that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts. And if we do not do the rituals of Hajj properly, then how will we get the reward for it? Similarly, if we are unable because of ill health to perform these rituals, then how will we get the blessings for that? And also, if we eat and drink things that are not halal, then it will affect our worship as well. So first of all, some of this was mentioned earlier as well, but I'll just reiterate them. Our pre-Hajj preparations. First things first, before we are going for Hajj and planning to leave, everybody who is going should go to their physician and do a complete physical. And that is because there sometimes are issues that are coming up above the surface that are not really well known to you as yet, or your doctor. But when you go under the stresses of the travel for Hajj and the Hajj itself, these disorders may become apparent. You want to try before you go for Hajj to do a complete physical with your doctors so that any possible problems can be sorted out before, or at least they can be recognized before you go on this journey. Secondly, so one is to do a complete physical, go to your doctors and get a complete physical done. Make sure your blood sugar is tested, your blood pressure is tested, your eyesight is tested, and so on and so forth. Secondly, begin or continue an exercise routine. Many of the parts of Hajj involve a lot of walking. And if we are not accustomed to walking, then it will be very difficult for us because of the numbers of people. Sometimes you've got to walk continuously. Sometimes, for example, going from Mina to Muzdalifah, I know that there are people who have actually, from Arafat to Muzdalifah, they've actually walked that distance because of the amount of traffic on the roads and the amount of buses on the roads and so on. And then many times as well, people walk from Muzdalifah back to Mina. Now, I know Mufti Wasim showed you that there's the border right there, but it doesn't mean that your tent is going to be on the border. So if you're planning to walk back from Muzdalifah to Mina, it might be a very long walk. So you should, start to do some exercises. Now, for those who are accustomed to doing exercises already, then they should just try to increase that routine a little more, or at least continue with it. But if you're not exercising at all, a simple thing like 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week. 20 minutes of walking, not jogging necessarily, but walking for 20 minutes every morning or every evening will assist in getting you some physical condition for doing the rigors of the Hajj. And they not only do they include walking, but also you may be standing for long periods of time as well, especially in the lines at the airline counters. Now also you should discuss any major medical issues with your physician. So sometimes, some of us will have problems like high blood pressure, or we may have diabetes, or we may have some other conditions. We need to tell our physicians that we are going on this journey of Hajj, give them an idea, if they're not Muslim, about what is involved in this, so that they can give us some advice about, for example, medications that we need to carry. Because sometimes we will be here that, the medications that you use, they're available there as well. But sometimes when you go there may be different types of medication and different doses, and you may be unable to ascertain what is the right dose or the right medication, because it may be a generic medication that you've been taking, and you may find another medication, another generic medication that's similar over there, but the active ingredient in it may be more or less, and you may not be able to figure it out. So you should write a list of the medications that you are on with your doctor as well. So don't write, for example, if you're don't write just the generic names, but write the actual names of the medication. If you're on metformin, or you're on some Zantac, or you're on Plavix, or whatever medication you're using, make sure you write that down as well. And as Mufti Usim had said earlier as well, if you have a major physical problem, a major medical problem, make sure that your Hajj group leader knows about it, and make sure that at least you tell somebody who's in a group with you. If you're going with your spouse, then inshallah your spouse will know what these problems are. But if not, then you may have a close friend, somebody from your village, somebody from your area, a neighbor that's going with you. Make sure they know that these are the situations that I have, and these are the medications that I am on. And you have a list of those medications written down very clearly that you've gotten from your physician. So in case of anything, let's say for example, you've put your medication in your luggage and your luggage becomes lost. Then if you have a list, sometimes it's so many medications, you're unable to remember the different types. And if you don't have a list of it written down somewhere, then you may not be able to remember to purchase a new set, and your medication may be lost. So that's very, very important. Also, Mufti Usim had mentioned making a will, and I'll just reiterate as well, it's very, very important. The Prophet ﷺ told us about the fact that we should have a will, even at home when we are mukim. Now that we are going to be travelers as well, we should have a will that we've left for our family members, and work out who is the executor and so on and so forth, and where is the will being kept as well. And now, alhamdulillah, many of the masajids, it's very easy to get a copy of an Islamic will from them, from many of the ulama, from the Darul Ulum here, from many of the masajids and the imams, and you can get a will, a copy of it, fill it out, sign it, get witnesses to sign it, and leave it in a safe place or with somebody, inshallah. So it's very, very important that before you leave, you do a will for the sake of your family members. And as he said as well, leave provisions. Don't leave and your family doesn't have the means to take care of themselves, or you have not put something in place for them to be able to eat and drink as they should while you are away. Sometimes in some cases you can ask the masjids to help as well with the family members and with situations, but make sure you've left enough provisions. For example, now alhamdulillah Hajj is more or less in the season of the holidays, but school may be starting back and some people may be coming back after school has started. You may have children who are going to school and they have transport that takes them to school. Did you make those arrangements? Did you sort those out? What about their books? What about their school bags? All of these things sorted out while you're going for Hajj, alhamdulillah, but you also have families who are depending on you. So make sure you put all of those things in place. Of course, you would have gotten your leave and so on and so forth, and you would have made arrangements even in your job. If there are certain responsibilities that you have that you need to fulfill and somebody needs to fulfill when you are away, you've put all of those things in place. And as Mufti Usim said as well, so I won't spend too much time on it, make amends. It's very, very important. You're going there, and the Prophet ﷺ says if your Hajj is accepted, you come back as a newborn baby. But how is it that you come back without any sins, and you have left people here who are cursing you, who are thinking evil of you, who wish you would die in Hajj, although that may be a good thing, but they wishing bad upon you, it's not a good idea. So do what you can do. And I know as well that sometimes you yourself have not done anything and people are just upset with you for no reason. You try your best. You go the extra mile and try to sort this out, and make an excuse to them as well that, brother, sister, I am going for Hajj. I want to go with a clear conscience. If I have done you some wrong, please forgive me for the wrong that I have done. And, try to sort out the situation. So making amends is also very, very important, inshallah. And this is not just for family, but even for neighbors and employers and teachers and all these different categories of people with whom we have been interacting and we may have had some problem in the past. So these are some of the pre-Hajj preparations. Now, preparing for the flight as well. It's very important to have your travel documents very, very safe. It's always a good idea to make copies of your passports and all of your travel documents. Make copies and have an extra copy with you and leave a copy at home as well, just in case you've lost your travel documents and you've lost a copy as well. Somebody at home has a copy of your passport, of your ID cards, of all of your itinerary and so on, that they could always fax or email or WhatsApp it to you. So make copies of your travel documents and keep them very, very safe as well as your money. Make sure that you are going with the correct currencies. Trinidad dollars don't have much meaning in Germany and so on and so forth, right? So make sure you're going with the US dollar, or you're going with the British pound, or you're going with the Saudi Arabian rial, whatever kinds of currencies you need. And of course, don't put all of your money in one place. Keep your money in separate places. Some of the Hajj groups, the leaders will be able to keep some of the money for you as well. Sometimes when you go to the hotels, there are vaults in the hotels that you can put all of your money in. You don't want to have a situation where you've lost your wallet, you've left your wallet in the restaurant and somebody took it up and all of your money was in there. At least have somewhere where you have different compartments, different places where you have different amounts of money. As Mufti Usim said as well, stay with the group and follow instructions. Many times, we ourselves, we are accustomed to flying and we have our own routines. And we are in a group, but we want to do what we want to do, and we separate ourselves from the group, and this causes the group leaders a lot of difficulties. And as I'm on this point as well, we have to really thank Allah that the group leaders who have been over the years taking Hajj groups, that they have been able to offer this service to us as people in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, Allah continue to bless them, inshallah. But we need to give them as much cooperation as we possibly can. So we should, stay with that group and follow the instructions of the Hajj group leader. Many times the Hajj group leader makes some arrangements separate to the normal arrangements at the airports, at the airlines. There may be somebody coming to pick us up, from the terminal and so on, that we may not be aware of. And we are making our own arrangements. We are getting our own taxis. We are in a group, but we're making arrangements for the group leader. He has already put somebody to make those arrangements. All of these things will cause a lot of confusion. So please be very careful about that. Now, choose meals where possible. This is, of course, preparing for the flights that you're going to take. And for us, it's definitely going to be more than one flight that we take to go to Saudi Arabia. So make sure we can choose meals wherever we have the opportunity to choose meals. There are some airlines, like Caribbean Airlines, that offers halal meals, they claim, but we've checked into it and these meals are not halal according to our own standards, the chicken and the beef. It sometimes is halal, but they cannot give us a guarantee that it's always halal. So it's always better if we can get fish or vegetarian options, or take along something for ourselves as well. Also, some of the flights are going to be very long. If you're traveling through Germany, for example, it's going to be a long flight from Trinidad or Barbados to Germany. So, if you can take something comfortable like a travel pillow, they have these neck pillows that help keep your neck up while you're asleep. This will aid in you getting a stiff neck and so on, to prevent you from getting a stiff neck. And if you have the space, you can probably carry a blanket, although many of the airlines will offer you blankets and maybe small pillows as well to help you feel comfortable. Now, I'm saying here as well, be aware of what is called DVT, deep vein thrombosis. DVT is a blood clot that can occur in one of the deep veins of the body, especially of the leg and calf and even of the thigh. And this can occur if, for example, we are on very long flights or we're driving for a very long period of time and there's not much movement in our legs. And a deep vein thrombosis, of course, is a clot, and this blood clot can be painful and it can have more deleterious effects if the clot moves from the leg and goes through into the lungs, and it forms a pulmonary embolism, which can of course be fatal as well. So DVT is something that can increase. You have predisposing factors such as age. The older you are, the greater chance of getting DVT. You may have a family history of DVT as well. You may have had a recent surgery, or you may have had some general health problem, like you may be diabetic, varicose veins, or being obese. All of these are factors that increase the chance of DVT occurring. So it is something that we need to be aware of, and especially it can occur if you have these predisposing factors and you're taking a long trip, such as one of those 12-hour flights or 10-hour flights that you may have to take on your way to Saudi Arabia. This can be an issue. And therefore, some of the things that you can do to prevent this DVT from occurring, number one, and also to make your flight much more comfortable, would be to wear loose clothing as possible during the flights. Don't wear things that are tight, very tight, and they are causing your blood circulation to be cut off. Sometimes you wear very tight socks or very tight trousers that are on our waists and so on. So we should try to wear loose clothing that will give us some ability to move as well, because we are going to be having to take up our luggage, move it around and so on. So you want something that allows you to move. Also, drink a lot of fluids. Drink a lot of fluids on the flight, because you're sitting for a long time. You may not realize that all of this time has gone, and you become very dehydrated. So you can become dehydrated even in a cool place on the plane. You can become dehydrated if you're in a 12-hour flight and you've only had half a glass of water or a glass of water for the entire flight, or you've had a glass of water and a cup of coffee, which itself is going to take more water out of your system. You can become dehydrated. Right? Of course, we have doctors in the audience as well who can give us more advice about these, but I'm just throwing out some points for you, inshallah, that we can use. One is, and especially with regard to the DVT, we should try to stand up, stretch, and move around as much as possible. For example, if every hour we can just get up, even stand up in the seat that you are in, stretch our legs, stretch our arms, move our necks around, stretch our legs, stretch our feet, bend our feet up and down. These are things that are going to keep the blood circulating, and they're going to help prevent the DVT from occurring, which is the blood clot in one of the deep veins of the leg or thigh. As well as carry out foot and leg exercises frequently. You can sit in your seat and move your legs up and down. You can bend your neck, your foot at your ankles, do little exercises, raise your leg up towards your chin and so on a few times every 15 minutes, every half an hour, to just make sure that you're keeping your circulation going for very long flights. And also, even if you are sleeping, we should try to shift a little bit when we are sleeping, not to try to sleep in one place all of the time, because you can cause getting a stiff neck, as well as cutting off the circulation from one of your limbs if you're sleeping on one part of your body all of the time. So these are some of the things that we have to take into consideration on the way. Little tips that we take into consideration to help us get there healthy, get us there strong, get us there feeling vibrant as well. One of the other issues that you're going to have is jet lag. And jet lag also occurs when we take long flights and our normal body rhythms are disrupted, because we follow what is called a circadian rhythm that goes with the hours of daylight and hours of nighttime. And in the long flights, of course, we are going through time zones, and we are also leaving in daylight perhaps, and arriving in the night, or traveling throughout the night and arriving the next day. So some of the tips that we can use to avoid jet lag, and how do we know we have jet lag, is that lethargy and tiredness that seems to be bothering us for a couple of days. Well, after you have come off from your flight, you just can't seem to have the energy that you had before you took the flight. And it's because your rhythm has been disrupted, your rest rhythm has been disrupted, so you're feeling sleepy and drowsy and tired for a long period of time. One is to set your watch to your destination time when you're leaving, so your mind is being focused on what time is going to be when you arrive. So you're setting your brain, your mind, to get yourself adjusted to that time already. Also, exercising during the flight as well will help you to keep yourselves active and keep your body active as well. Avoid caffeine as much as you can. I mean, I know a lot of us can't do without a cup of coffee, but perhaps we can have one cup of coffee and have some other decaffeinated drinks afterwards. This will also help us and also stay hydrated. Also, if we get some sleep on the flight, it will help if it's a long flight, because long flights, that goes through time zones, if we're awake, our body goes out of sync. Also, eat properly as well. Eat healthily when we're on the flight, and try to sleep in the night when we arrive. So if we're arriving in the daytime, wherever we are arriving to, then try to stay awake a little bit during the day and sleep in the night instead, because our system has to adjust now to the day and night times where we are. And if it is we go to sleep in the day when we have arrived, we're already putting our system out of whack with what is going on around us. So to get that rhythm back with our minds and our bodies, try to spend some time in the day to get accustomed. Actually, if you arrive in the day, then go out into the sunlight, so your body becomes accustomed to that sunlight at that time, and then you're going to be there for a little while. So try to sleep in the night. Don't arrive in the day and try to go to sleep one time and then get up in the night. You're putting your system out of control. So that's jet lag, and that's just about there. Now, let's say we've overcome all of that, and we are going now to Makkah, to the Holy Land. There are some things that we need to take into consideration. One of them, and the most important one, is vaccinations. There are compulsory vaccinations that we must have when we're going to Saudi Arabia, and that one of them is yellow fever, and the other one is meningococcal meningitis. And both of these are available at the health centers, as well as private doctors, and your Hajj group leaders can advise you as to where you can get these medications, these vaccinations, and how soon you need to take them before, what time you must have before you can fly, and when they'll become effective. So these are the two compulsory ones to go to Saudi Arabia. There are some recommended ones as well. For example, you can take the influenza vaccine, or the flu vaccine as it is called, and it is available all over in the health centers, at the doctors, and so on as well. In the United States, you can go into the pharmacies as well and get the flu vaccine. Also dengue and also the Zika vaccine, if it's available, you can take those as well, because of the fact that there are so many people you're going to be meeting and so many different situations you're going to be meeting. Whatever you can do to prevent yourself from getting ill, that will be very important. Of course, these are only recommended vaccinations, and I'm not sure if how effective they are, but they're recommended by, and information is obtained from the official Saudi Arabia Hajj website. All right, so let's talk about some of the health issues that you may have when you go to Saudi Arabia. First of all, diseases and conditions, respiratory diseases. They've done some research, and they found that the most common reason for hospital admission during the Hajj period, 57% of the people who end up in the hospitals is because of some respiratory problem, meaning they had some breathing problem. And the most common of those breathing problems would be pneumonia. There will be other kinds of breathing problems like asthma and so on that people would have pre-existing conditions that they would have gone with, but because of the dust and the heat and the people, it would have exacerbated that problem. But many times people would know their situation with asthma, or if they have wheezing and so on, and they would have the necessary medications. But sometimes pneumonia can occur, and this is the most popular of those respiratory diseases that people encounter, and they end up being hospitalized for. So we need to protect ourselves from that. The other kind of sets of diseases will be the diarrheal diseases. For example, cholera, hepatitis A, and food poisoning. Food poisoning being the most common, because you're trying to feed 2-3 million people at one time, and there are different standards of hygiene that different people employ, and of course diseases can spread very quickly from person to person when there are so many people and proper hygiene practices are not put into place. So diarrhea is something that also can occur, and we'll go into how we can help prevent these as well. Also, you do have cardiovascular diseases, and the most common cause of death amongst pilgrims who go for Hajj is the heart attack, the most common cause of death. So sometimes people go and they did not realize that they have a heart problem, and they go there, and because of the stress of the Hajj, they get a heart attack, and sometimes Allah decides that they die and stay there. So that's the most common cause of death among pilgrims. There are also some skin infections that people can get. They may be bacterial, or they may be viral. For example, this disease called ORF, which is a disease that actually transfers from sheep. and from camels and goats, not camels, sheep and goats, from them to human beings. So sometimes there are people, not many of us, I don't think, but there are some people who will go to visit the sheep that are going to be slaughtered, and they may interact with them. And this is a skin lesion that the sheep will have that can pass on by contact to human beings as well. You also have some minor problems like chafing and eczema, and of course burning because of the heat of the ground that may occur with the skin. And also you have some eye problems that people get, the dryness of the atmosphere, the dust as well. So people who have a contact lens and people who have problems with their eyes and so on, they should be very careful with when they go for Hajj about taking care of their eyes and keep taking with them an eye drop, for example. And also you do have some blood-borne diseases like HIV, hepatitis B and hepatitis C. And these can usually come during the shaving of the head that we'll talk about a little later on, inshallah. What we really want to move on to is how to prevent a lot of these things from happening. One, of course, and the most important thing that I emphasize over and over again is to wash your hands with soap and water or with disinfectant, especially after coughing, if you're coughing and sneezing, after using the washrooms, before handling and consuming food, and after touching animals. So this is very, very important to keep your hands clean, and you can walk with hand sanitizers as well. But before you eat, because one of the most common ways of getting diseases into your bodies is through your orifices. And the most common orifices would be your mouth, your nose, and your eyes. And this is where when your hands get into these places, that's where you get sick. So you would have touched something that has some bacteria in it or some virus in it, but it's not going to be able to penetrate through the skin of your hand. But when you take your hand that you didn't wash and put it in your mouth, or you put it into your nostrils, or you put it into the corners of your eyes, that's where you introduce the virus into the internal part of your body. So washing your hands with soap and water is very, very important. Remember, you're using washrooms that hundreds of thousands of people are using as well. And alhamdulillah, everybody is Muslim and everybody will try to adopt the best hygienic practices, but not everybody has those hygienic practices culturally. And this is how diseases like cholera and so on spread very easily. Also, use disposable tissues when coughing or sneezing. Don't use wash rags. People tend to use wash rags and then they will sneeze into the wash rags, and these wash rags will collect the bacteria. And of course, after a couple of hours, the bacteria will die, but they may be there virulent for a little while, and other people might take up these rags, or you may touch somebody with them, and then you are spreading whatever cold or flu that you may have yourself. And of course, dispose of it in the waste basket. Try as much to avoid hand contact with the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. That's very important. And wear masks. Wear masks. There are dust masks that you can buy that will prevent a lot of the dust from getting into your respiratory system, as well as preventing a lot of the bacteria as well from entering into your system. So you should use dust masks, not in the hotels, of course, but you should use them in crowded places when you are going out, inshallah, as much as possible. Some more tips. Avoid direct contact with the persons who are ill, with cough, sneezing, expectoration, vomiting, diarrhea, and so on. Now, I mean, of course, we are Muslims and we are accustomed to hugging and shaking hands and so on, and somebody feels offended if it is that, you don't shake their hands, what are you a better Muslim than me, you feel you're too rich or whatever. But if a man just came to you and he sneezed in his hands, and then he puts his hands out to shake your hands, then, you have a good chance of picking up the bacteria, the viruses that have come out in the phlegm that came out with the sneeze. So, a person can say that, disease and illness is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is very true. That is absolutely true. You will only get sick if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded it. On the other hand, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has always warned us about taking precaution, not to put yourself in harm's way. So if you know that this is a situation where a person has just sneezed into his hands, or you have just sneezed into your hands because you couldn't find a napkin, then don't go shaking somebody else's hand immediately. try to wash your hands first with soap and water, because you don't want to be responsible for that person getting ill and unable to perform the rituals of the Hajj. Also, try not to share personal belongings. Some belongings like shavers and so on, and toothbrushes and so on, should not be shared. We should have our own, and if we don't have one, then we should probably just do without those and get one. Everything is available there anyhow, but not to share very personal items of personal hygiene. And of course, maintain good personal hygiene as well. It's very, very important that we ourselves maintain personal hygiene. If it is that we allow our bodies to become dirty and the perspiration to dry on our bodies and so on, these are areas where bacteria will start to multiply, and very soon we can get an infection, a rash, some soreness, something that will cause us to make it more difficult for us during the Hajj. One very common problem people have, for example, is the chafing between their thighs, because in the ihram you're not wearing any underwear or any shorts and so on, or any boxers and so on, and your thighs can be rubbing against each other. And if you perspire, I mean, we're being very practical, right? If you perspire and then that perspiration dries up, there are going to be little grains of salt left as well on your skin, and these are now going to be rubbing against each other and rubbing against your skin, and they're going to cause chafing. And that chafing can be very, very painful if you have to walk a good distance, from one place to the other. So if you bathe properly and you wash off that perspiration as much as possible, that will help with that. And then you use things like creams and lubricants and so on to assist with that as well. Avoid close contact with animals. I know this doesn't pertain to many of us, particularly camels when visiting farms, markets, and barn areas. These animals can also spread diseases that can be passed on to human beings. Avoid contact with sick animals, and avoid drinking raw camel's milk or eating meat that has not been properly cooked. Right? So even with regard to milk, we should drink milk that's pasteurized. And if you want to try camel's milk or camel's meat, that's fine. But you should try to get camel's milk that has already been pasteurized. And I'm sure you'll get it in Bin Dawood and all those different supermarkets and so on over there. So other things about prevention. Now, one of the things that Mufti Usim had spoken about is after doing the sa'i in the Umrah, for example, you go and you get your head shaved, or after pelting the Jamara on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, you get your heads shaved after the Qurbani has been done for you. Many times people tend to go by just people on the outside and get their heads shaved. We should use certified barbers, right? Because people on the outside may be using the same razors over and over again. And this can actually spread infections very easily, because you can be getting, when they're shaving somebody's head, they can get small cuts and blood can get on those shavers. And they may just gently wipe those shavers, but they may just smear the blood along the shaver, and then they come to cut your hair, and then they may cut you as well and transfer some of that infected blood into your blood, into your body. So we should go to certified barbers, because those barbers would have been trained, and they would have disinfectants and so on to clean their equipment with as well. So don't go by the people who are on the streets and so on, and don't use unused blades. If you're doing it by yourself, somebody is giving you, you're using a blade to do it on your own or between yourselves among the group, then try to use clean new blades every time. These little razor blades are very, very inexpensive if that's what you're using. Try to use a new blade, or if you're using a machine, then try to use clean the machine out beforehand, because that's a very easy way of spreading infection. Also, use things like talcum powder, ointments, and creams for your skin. We're not accustomed, even though we live in a hot climate here as well in the Caribbean, we're not accustomed to our bodies and our skin, especially for the sisters, not accustomed to the heat and the humidity that you're going to find over there. Your skin and your lips can get very dry, and this can lead to chafing and other kinds of problems. So you can use some ointment, some cream. Of course, not when you're in the ihram. And in the ihram, you can't use anything that's scented. But before you go into the ihram, you should be using creams and ointments and even talcum powder to absorb some of the perspiration from your bodies, so that your skin maintains that softness and doesn't get dried and cracked. This is especially as well for the feet, because during the ihram, during the actual days of Hajj, many times you will abandon your slippers and walk bare feet. And you're walking bare feet on tiles, and these tiles may be very hot. You're walking on concrete, it's going to be very hot. and sometimes you can get cracks on the underneath of your feet that can be very painful. So beforehand, try to use in the night before you go to sleep some cream, some lotion, and make sure that your skin is as moist as possible. Also now, in terms of prevention, carry medication for colds, diarrhea, and constipation. I think this comes up a little bit later on as well, but just as a reminder, don't, sometimes, you say when you go there, you're going to buy. That's true, you can get a lot of stuff over there, but sometimes you don't get what you want, it's difficult, there are lots of crowds and so on. At least carry a little bit of some of these things that you need immediately. If you're getting a cold, and on the way that cold becomes worse because of the temperatures and so on, it's going to be very uncomfortable for you. You should take something for colds, for diarrhea, for constipation. Also some hygienic aids, some moist wipes, masks, gloves, hand sanitizers. And as Mufti Wasim had said earlier, inform the Hajj leaders of pre-existing heart conditions and other diseases, such as if you're diabetic. Because if you're diabetic, you must have a certain kind of diet. And if they don't know, then you're gonna be eating everything. And sometimes you're gonna see so many things to eat when you go there, especially in the hotels. You need to get somebody else to remind you that your brother, you're diabetic. You shouldn't be eating all those cakes. Sister, you're diabetic. Don't leave that burfi alone. You're gonna see a lot to eat. There's gonna be a lot to eat, and food is very cheap. But it's gonna cause your sugar levels to go high. You're going to feel uncomfortable, you're going to feel sick, you're going to increase your problems later on. So you should tell people if you're diabetic, and you should carry a glucose meter with you. Maybe you don't have to carry everybody who's diabetic in the group carry one, but if you have Hajj meetings going on, that 5 or 10 of you have diabetes, and maybe you can decide to carry 2 or 3 meters and carry enough strips and so on, so you can test your sugar levels when you're there as well. And if you have asthma, make sure and carry an inhaler or a couple of inhalers, the kind that you are using as well. I mean, all of these things are available there, but it's very good to have them with you as well. And if you have things like high blood pressure, or you suffer from seizures, or you have some communicable disease, please, you need to inform the Hajj leader so that they know how to make special provisions for you, so that you will not, pass on these issues to others as well, and everybody can have a safe Hajj. Very important to wash fruits and vegetables well before eating. Remember, there's a lot of dust, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of coughing, there's a lot of sneezing, there's a lot of stuff going on. You're eating raw fruits and vegetables. Here in Trinidad, we're accustomed to just take fruits and vegetables off the shelf and just bite into it. Many times they are pre-washed before they go on the supermarket shelves, but over there, there's so many hundreds of thousands of people, so you need to wash your fruits and vegetables. Also, when you're buying canned foods and drinks, watch the expiry dates. And make sure not that they take things that are expired, because expired food generally is going to be okay still, but they may cause some problems to you, some food poisoning may occur and so on. Keep away from uncovered food, because it is exposed to insects and also to pollution. It's exposed to all kinds of things. So as much as possible, try to buy food that's wrapped or sealed or covered or kept in a hygienic way. Wash your hands well before and after preparing food, and before and after eating as well. And cooked food should be eaten immediately after cooking, and when need be, it should be kept in the refrigerator. Try not to keep food on the outside. The temperature is going to be very warm, and food may spoil faster than you think. One of the things that they found, the Saudi authorities that they mentioned, is that avoid storing cooked food in buses for a long time when moving from one Hajj site to the other. This is one of the major triggers of food poisoning during the Hajj. They found that many times, many of the cases of food poisoning that they found is that people cook foods in their hotels, and then they would take them on the bus, and then the bus journey is taking hours upon hours, and they're leaving that food until they actually get to their point of their destination. And 15 hours afterwards, that food has been sitting there in the hot bus, and then they eat it, and then they fall sick. So be very careful about that, and your Hajj group leader should be able to prepare for you to get fresh food when you reach your different sites, inshallah. Okay, let's move on now to climate and temperature. The forecast for the daytime temperatures during Hajj is 40 to 43 degrees Celsius. Now here in Trinidad, it gets to about 33 to 34 degrees Celsius. So you're looking at least 6 or 7 degrees more, 40 to 43 degrees in both Makkah and in Medina. That's the forecast for this year, 2017. So it's going to be very hot for you in the Hajj. And they don't expect any rainfall either. So you're not going to get any relief. You're going to have a lot of sunny days, right? It's not going to be raining. Most likely it's not going to be raining. I think the forecast of rainfall is 0.1% or something like that. So it's going to be hot. And certain things can happen when it's hot. The implications of the heat are dehydration, of course. You can get dehydrated, and worst of all, more than that, you can get heat exhaustion, which leads to heat stroke or sunstroke. And what are the symptoms of heat stroke or sunstroke? You start to feel dizzy, you start to feel nauseated, you may actually get chills. You're in a hot sun and you're feeling chilly, starting to get chills. Or you may get severe headaches, excess tiredness and thirst and body pain. These are all signs of sunstroke and heat stroke. Another thing that can happen is that you may get burns on your bare feet because you're standing for long times in Arafah. You know, you may be standing bare feet in Muzdalifah will be in the night, but you know, many places you're going to be standing for a long period of time, and you know, if you're bare feet, you may get burns on your feet, you may get chafing because of the hotness of the ground. So those are very, very important things. The climate and the temperature needs to be considered when we're going for Hajj. And what's something that we can do? Number one, drink a lot of bottled water. Drink a lot of bottled water. Try not to drink too much of regular water, but bottled water is safer, right? Because you're sure that inshallah it has been treated. So try to drink a lot of bottled water on the trip as well as while you're there. And also you may need to take salt tablets, so sometimes you can take those as well in case you're perspiring a lot. Some people perspire a lot, and if you're not eating enough salt, you're gonna your electrolytes are gonna drop. So you may take some salt tablets with you as well, and have one, you know, ever so often with your water. Do some of the things that you can do at night when it's cooler, right? Like, well, I mean, I say rituals here, but even shopping and things you can do at night after it's cool, because if you try to go in the hot sun, we're not accustomed to that temperature, and we are walking around, looking around, you're getting dehydrated, and you don't even realize it. So there are some things you can do at night, and many of the places will open very, very late into the night. So don't worry about, the shop with the best jubbas is closing at 6 o'clock in the evening. No, they're going to close 4 o'clock in the morning, if they close at all. So don't worry about that. You go after when it's cool, you know, after Isha Salah and so on, when it's cooler, so you don't have the rays of the sun affecting you, leading to sunstroke or leading to dehydration. Get enough sleep. That's also very important to prevent against dehydration, and try not to become exhausted. Always be thinking about drinking some water. You're not going to be fasting even on the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, so you know, drink water inshallah as much as you can. Avoid exposure to the sun wherever you can, and seek shelter as much as possible. Don't say, you know, I'm a hero and I can take it, I am young and I am strong. You're just taking, as Mufti Yussi made a point, to keep your energy for the days of Hajj. Before, many times when you go early, we're spending out our energy and our strength and doing all kinds of things. So make sure that we avoid exposure to the sun, and use a light colored umbrella if you can. If you can get an umbrella, use a light colored umbrella. Of course, the black umbrellas will absorb the sunlight, right? And that will and radiate some of the sunlight underneath the umbrella as well, so it will keep you a little warmer. But a light colored umbrella will be better to keep out the direct rays of the sun. And also you can use a cap, and also use sunscreen. Use sunscreen if you're going to be spending many hours in the sunlight. Use some sunscreen. Of course, if you're in ihram, you can't use sunscreen except if it is unscented. And as well, use loose and light colored clothing, right? Because black clothing will absorb more of the rays of the sun. And of course, in the ihram, you won't have that issue. It'll be white. But even for the sisters in ihram, maybe they should go with colors like cream and white and beige and so on, rather than black and so on, if it's possible, and they're going to be in the sun for a long period of time. Also, if you are feeling the effects of sunstroke, you need medical attention, so inform your Hajj group leader and get to a health center so that you can get some fluids and electrolytes back into your system. Now, there are some other kinds of risks that we have to think about. One of them is motor vehicle accidents. And there is a lot of people, a lot of vehicles and so on, and sometimes there are a lot of accidents that occur. We should try to follow the rules and put on our seat belts if we are driving in any vehicles, and try to obey the road traffic laws. Try to be very, very careful when you're going from place to place, especially if you're walking on the streets where there's a lot of traffic. Many people will just stay within the main metropolitan area of Makkah and Medina, so they won't have much movement of vehicles, but there are some places where the roads are really very fast traffic, and they've got to be very, very careful. So be careful about getting into accidents as well. There are also going to be falls and broken bones, so you be very careful about, as well as where you're walking. Make sure you're holding onto railings when you're walking up staircases and so on and so forth. And of course, you may need to visit a trauma center. There are many of them that will be set up for people who fall into accidents. And of course, if you need to use a brace or use a walking stick if you have issues with your limbs and so on. Use that to help you as well. Stampedes, Mufti mentioned that as well. And just to mention that on the 24th of September in 2015, between 2,200 and 2,400 pilgrims were killed in a stampede. And these stampedes, the most probable time for the stampedes is when you're going to pelt that first Jamara, right, on the 10th of Dhul Hijjah, because everybody is going to do that at the same time, and one person, becomes scared and starts to turn around and starts to scream, and everybody else starts to panic. Right, so be very, very careful about stampedes, and stay together and keep your eyes open and be aware. And also even fires, on the 15th of September in 2015 as well, there were 1,000 pilgrims who had to be evacuated from an Azizia apartment building, and 2 people were injured in that as well. So you must be very careful if you're lighting fires. For example, in Mina, if you're making tea and so on in the tents and you're lighting fires in the tents, make sure that you're far away from the flammable material in the tents. Also, smoking is a hazard that can cause fires as well, and follow the rules of safety that they will be giving to you. I'm going to go a little faster because I know it's taking a long time, inshallah. Smoking, Allah says, and He makes lawful for them the good things and prohibits for them the evil and the unlawful things. So smoking is something that many people who have this habit in Trinidad here take this habit with them when they go for Hajj. But it's a good opportunity to try to kick the habit in Hajj. Remember that smoking is harmful to the body. It's also a waste of money, and it's harmful to other people as well. Secondhand smoke is a major cause of cancer. And therefore, even if we do smoke, we should, when we go for Hajj, we should try to avoid smoking. Try to, use some gum, Nicorette gum or something, nicotine gums. Try to do something to stop ourselves from smoking. It's a very good opportunity to get away from this bad habit that we have, inshallah. So just some final health tips. Maintain personal hygiene, as we said before. Bathing. Also brushing your teeth is very, very important. And washing hands. Protecting your skin, your eyes, and your feet with creams, lotions, and powder. Stop bad habits like spitting. People tend to spit all over. And spitting can also is very distasteful, and it's, especially if you have the cold, it can be really a really bad habit. And I think in our culture here in Trinidad, we don't have that habit of just spitting anywhere, but there are some cultures which have that habit, and we have to have a lot of tolerance as well. But we ourselves should not be spitting anywhere. We should go to the washrooms and spit if we have some phlegm to get rid out of our system. And being very careful about putting our hands in our mouth, our eyes, and our nose. Be aware of your surroundings. The closest health center, our Hajj group leaders should tell us that there is a health center close by. There it is, how to get to it, and so on in case of any emergency. And also, I think every group will have a first aid kit in case you need some quick medication, you need some bandages, or you need something like that. You can have that, inshallah. Eat fresh, healthy food and drinks which you are accustomed to. Sometimes we go taking chances to buy some exotic foods that cause a lot of problems. One, because it's prepared unhygienically. 2, because our systems are just not accustomed to these very spicy foods. Sometimes if you're eating food from Pakistan and India, many times we see there's a lot of biryani and tandoori and ghost and all kind of spicy food up there. But some of the spicy food could really give you diarrhea for a couple of days and that could put you back really far. Right? So if you're buying this spicy food, try to buy it from somewhere that's, looks like a place that they have proper hygiene and so on. The food is covered and so on. You're buying from these hundreds of people who are selling on the outside. You don't know how they're preparing the food as well. So be very, very careful if you're seeing flies around and the food is not covered and they're using their hands, they're not using gloves, they're not using utensils. Be very, very careful about that as well. You can try different kinds of food, but be very careful getting close to the days of Hajj to try anything that may cause you to become upset and it takes away from your ibadah. Use clean washrooms, right? Or maybe in many cases you clean the washrooms before you use them. Many times you're going to have hoses that you can use, and you can stand at a distance, wash down the entire toilet before you use it, to make sure that, and use it in such a way that minimum contact with your physical body as well, as much as possible, so that there's minimum risk of any infection and so on. Right? But use clean washrooms when you can, or clean the washrooms when you can, and use personal hygiene measures as well. Make sure that you're always washing your hands, make sure that you're always doing a stinger properly, using enough water, and so on and so forth. Be careful around crowds, right? I just want to mention that as well, and on roadways as well. And keep a medical record of past issues and inform others around you, so that, as I was saying earlier about the list of medication, also if you have some past issues, like some people, for example, they can get vertigo, and vertigo is something that can occur very, very, very suddenly. And a person who gets vertigo starts to vomit and gets diarrhea and is unable to stand and becomes dizzy. And sometimes you have somebody next to you, and all of a sudden they're vomiting and they have diarrhea and they're fainting, and you don't know what's going on. So such a person, and vertigo can be brought on by motion sickness and by the flights on the plane and long rides and so on, and reading while traveling, and all these kind of things can bring on vertigo. So something like this, if you suffer from that, you might have your Stamatil and so on, you may have your tablets and so on, but you need to tell somebody that, what, I suffer from vertigo, so if this thing starts to happen to me, I start to vomit, just give me a Stamatil, or inform the medical personnel that I have vertigo and I'm getting an attack. Because when you get an attack of vertigo, for example, you're not going to be able to see anything. You're just vomiting, you're just throwing up, you're fainting, all these kinds of things. So you need to tell people around you, what are some of the issues that you have to deal with. And it's not your fault, but these are things that you have to deal with as well. I want to move on, inshallah, very quickly, the last few minutes, about halal and food issues. Packing for the journey, right? Of course, we should try to take some things with us, some non-perishable snacks. Things like peanuts, dried biscuits, granola, water, energy drinks, and so on, because on the journey you may have a lot of delays, you may have a lot of waiting in lines, you may have a lot of waiting between flights, and sometimes things in the airport are very expensive. Of course, drinks and so on you might not be able to take from place to place, but small snacks, packaged in small quantities. Don't take a whole 2-kilogram pack of peanuts, because when you open it, it will tend to get stale and so on. But take a few small packs instead. Things like peanuts, granola bars, and so on. They can give you some energy boost while you're on your journey. Right? Try not to take things with glass bottles, because they can break and cause injury. Take things in small packs, as I was saying. Check the expiry dates of the things that you're taking as well, or the things that you're buying over there. And of course, check the ingredients. And some of the main ingredients you need to check for on your flight and in Saudi Arabia as well. And let me emphasize that. On your flight and in Saudi Arabia as well, you need to look for things like gelatin. Gelatin, most of the gelatin in the world is made from pigs. Most of the gelatin is made from the skin of pigs. And the second largest source of gelatin are cattle. It's cattle. But neither of them is permissible, because it's not halal cattle, not halal cows and bulls. Right? And of course, pigs, of course, are totally haram. So watch out for things with gelatin. And it will be written in the ingredient listing, but you go to the airport, you're waiting, you go by somewhere to buy something. We've told you don't buy the open food, you don't know how to prepare it, so you're buying something in a package, it may contain gelatin in it. So you need to read the labels as well. Glycerin is also something that you should try to avoid, because glycerin comes from fat, and this fat can also come from pigs. Another ingredient you need to look for would be carmine. Carmine, this is a coloring that comes from insects, and it's not permissible for us to consume. It's a red coloring, so you're going to see it in things that are red. You won't see carmine in something that's blue, but you will see it in something that's red. So if you have something that you're buying with some kind of red filling, a strawberry filling, look for the word carmine in it. Or if you don't see the words carmine, or you don't see the words gelatin or glycerin, they may have these E numbers, E120. I just put 4 to try for you to remember these numbers. E120, 422, 441, and 920. Try to remember these numbers. E120, 422, 441, 920, and don't buy anything that has these numbers on them. And of course, stay away from spicy foods if you're on your flight, so you don't get upset, as well as stay away from Milk drinks, if you are lactose intolerant, make sure that you don't have you have things like lactate or things that do have lactose in them. All right, in terms of medications, you should really be taking along some medications, or when you get there, you should buy some medications. And some of the important medications we need to have will be like cough syrups, multi-symptom relief medication, multivitamins and supplements, anti-diarrhea tablets, constipation relief, antacids, ointments for cuts, stings and rashes, eye drops, painkillers, muscle rubs, antibiotics if we're taking them, and rehydration salts if we get dehydrated. So this is basically some of the things that we should pack along with us. But perhaps, within the group, you can make a decision that some will take some of the things and some will take others. Or when you get there to Saudi Arabia, there are many drugstores that you can go by and you can get many of these things. But again, you're looking at those ingredients that I just mentioned. You're looking for gelatin, you're looking for glycerin, you're looking for caramine. You don't want to buy anything with these ingredients in them as far as possible. So things to look out for. Some other things to look out for, things with alcohol in them. Right now, there's a very small chance that you will find things with alcohol in them in Saudi Arabia, except in some of the cough medicines. Now, the ruling of most of the fuqaha with regard to with cough medicines with alcohol is that it is permissible if there is no other choice. So if there are no other cough medicines that can suffice for your good health, then you are allowed to use the cough medicines with alcohol. But there are many brands of cough medicines without alcohol now. Many, many brands. You will get many brands in Saudi Arabia in the pharmacies without alcohol, and you will get with alcohol as well. Just tell them, don't assume that you are a Muslim, they are a Muslim, they're going to give you something without alcohol. They may be following that rule that says, or that law that says it's permissible to use, but out of precaution, just tell them you want a cough medicine without alcohol. Or better yet, you can buy a bottle of it right here in Trinidad, and you can usually get these cough medicines in plastic bottles as well. Don't take a glass bottle of cough medicine or of tonic. It may break in your luggage. Take a plastic bottle. Many of them are available in plastic bottles as well. Magnesium stearate and stearic acid is one thing that is really, really troublesome and difficult to get away from, but you can try to get medications without magnesium stearate or stearic acid, then you should use them. If you do get them with magnesium stearate and stearic acid, I would suggest, and you have no choice, you can use them inshallah. Right? But it's something that we would try to avoid, but it's not something that is absolutely haram for us. So if we're not getting most of the tablets, will have magnesium stearate and stearic acid. If you can get it without, it will be better. Gelatin, as I said, is something that we should try to avoid altogether in the medications that we are buying. Source of glycerin is also something that's going to be difficult to ascertain, so try to get stuff without glycerin. And if you're getting generic substitutes, make sure you look at the active ingredient in your generic substitutes. You may be using Plavix, for example, here, and you want to go and get a substitute for Plavix over there, but it may have a lesser amount of active ingredient and doesn't prevent the clotting of the blood as effectively as the Plavix would. So you need to make sure that the substitutes you're taking in the correct doses to get the same amount of active ingredient that you would get with your medication that you usually take. Also, look at the prices locally and abroad. I tend to think that the medications are cheaper over there in the United States. So in Saudi Arabia. So, but then again, if you leave all your medications to go and get over there and you don't get it, you'll be in trouble. So take some, and then you can go there and buy whatever you see that you can even bring back if you wish of medications that will be helpful to you. Also, be careful about different formulations of the same medication that you may be taking here and over there, and make sure it has the same active ingredient. Also, be careful about the side effects of the medications and look for the expiry dates as well. These are just some pointers to look at with regard to medications. And with regard to personal care items, we should be trying to take things like some hand sanitizers and some moist wipes, soap, of course, deodorant, shampoo, creams, lotions, sunblock, perfumes, and colognes if we want to. Some of that we can get over there as well. Again, you're looking for similar kinds of ingredients. You're looking for pork-derived gelatin, glycerin, oleic acid, L-cysteine. Those are the 4 ingredients that we look for in personal care items, that if they are from the pig, we're not allowed to use them, according to many of the scholars. But from other animals, you'll be okay as well. I know that is a bit of a difficult thing for you to work out when you're over there. So better you take your stuff over here that you're safe with, and you can get the same brands over there, inshallah. So you can always find out which are the safe brands to use over here. And when you go there, you might find the same brands. Most likely, they'll be the same formulation. You can buy them over there as well. All right. If you see SD alcohol, a lot of people see SD alcohol in many of their personal care items. SD alcohol is okay. That's fine. And if you find products that are just say that they're vegetarian, that's one golden rule that you could follow. That vegetarian products are usually going to be halal for us to consume, except if they have alcohol, which you probably won't find in Saudi Arabia. Now, talking about eating. First of all, eat safely, right? Be careful about where you're going to buy your food, and eat wisely as well in terms of finance and cost as well, because you have to budget your money as well. And many of the Hajj groups will give you, I think, breakfast and dinner, but no lunch, or one meal and not the other two meals. So you've got to spend. And you can find very expensive food, and you can find good tasting food as well that's not so expensive. So you need to budget for the food as well that you're eating. And wisely here also means eat food that is not going to create any issues with your stomach and give you heartburn or give you diarrhea and so on and so forth. Now, our position with regard to poultry is that much of the poultry going into Saudi Arabia is from Brazil, and much of the Brazilian poultry is either stunned or mechanically slaughtered. So if you're eating poultry, we recommend that you buy the local Saudi brand of poultry, or you go to your food places, ask them if they are using local Saudi chickens. If they're using local poultry, they don't do any stunning and they don't do any mechanical slaughter. In Saudi Arabia, it's all hand slaughtered, and that would be the best thing, right? And the local brand is called Al-Wataniya. So even if you're preparing your own food and you're going to Bin Dawood to buy your own meat and so on, buy Al-Wataniya brand. Or ask the people there, they will tell you, Baladi is from our country. Buy that. If you go to the fast food outlets, many times they will tell you it is Sadia or Sara, it is from Brazil. The Brazilian chicken may be hand slaughtered, but stunned, or it may be mechanically slaughtered. So it's something that's very questionable. As I said here, most of the fast food outlets and restaurants use foreign chicken from doubtful sources. Of course, you don't have to eat chicken alone or chicken at all. You can eat beef, and I consider all of the beef to be halal. There are difference of opinions about that from some of the scholars, but I've looked at it, and I think all of the beef is permissible, so we can eat safely. All of the beef that we're getting in Saudi Arabia, the lamb as well, the goat, fish, and the camel meat, right? All of that will be okay. So you don't have to eat chicken if you're not getting the kind of chicken that you want, right? I mean, and you can get it. For example, you can purchase from the popular and well-known establishments such as Tajij in Hilton Towers. That's one restaurant that has a few outlets all over, and they only use local Saudi chicken. So you buy from places that are using chicken that is grown in Saudi Arabia rather than imported from Brazil. The imported chicken is a problem. Also, there are a lot of private caterers, and many of them are Indian and Pakistanis, and they also use the local chicken as well. So that's also a possibility. And of course, inform the Hajj group leaders of your dietary needs. And sometimes you have to compromise as well. Sometimes you go to a hotel, you go to the hotel and to the restaurant, and all the chicken there is from Brazil. You can't go and quarrel with them or quarrel with your Hajj group leader and say, why you bring me into this hotel where all of the chicken is from Brazil? They have no control over that, right? But you can, make a compromise and eat something else. Eat some vegetable or something, some potato or something, or eat some other kind of meat. And every time you go to the hotel and to the restaurant, there are going to be a whole variety of meats you can eat from. So if the chicken is a problem, then don't make that into a problem. Just eat something else, inshallah. Right? But I think you should inform your Hajj group leaders as well that, you're taking this position that you only want to eat from the local sources of chicken in Saudi Arabia, and they can tell you whether they can provide it or not. And if they can't, all you're asking them to do is to inform you that they're unable to provide that service, and then you can make some arrangement, some compromise. Don't get into any arguments with your Hajj group leaders and say, I'm paying all this amount of money and you're not giving me, you're giving Brazilian chicken, I don't want this Brazilian chicken. That kind of thing. That doesn't make any sense, because there's nothing they could do about it. Remember that there's nothing Saudi Arabia could do about it, because they're trying to feed 3 million people and they're not producing enough chicken to do that. Right? That's a fact. So they have to import it. and they have to import it from wherever they can get it, right? So their hands are tied in a sense, and they do the best that they can do. But let's try to protect our Hajj in the best possible manner, and just for those few days, eat that which we are sure is halal, or find some substitute and compromise, inshallah. So some points to consider. Eat in moderation. When you go there, you're going to see a lot of food. A lot of food. And if you eat too much, you're going to get sick. Right? And you won't be able to fulfill the real purpose that you've gone for. You'll come back and say, boy, that's some real good food in Saudi Arabia. You don't want to come back and say that. You want to come back and say, subhanallah, I did the tawaf and I was so, strong and healthy and so on and so forth. So eat in moderation, right? Spend wisely, get your value for money, because you can get a whole range of prices and spend a whole lot for food, as well as spend a reasonable amount for food as well. Read ingredients for the packaged food that you're buying, both in terms of the ingredients that they contain and in terms of expiry dates. Don't go looking for many things. With your foods, just look for gelatin, glycerin, and caramine. Just look for those 3 things. Don't worry about the rest of the things. Once those things are not there, that's okay. Another rule that you could use is that if the food has these ingredients but it's kosher dairy certified, then we will consider it to be halal as well. If it's kosher dairy certified, and the kosher dairy certification is a U, right, with a circle and a D next to it. A U with a circle and a D next to it. You'll see it here in many local foods as well. A U inside of a circle and a D next to it means it's kosher, dairy certified, and it means that it has no animal ingredients whatsoever. So it means if it has glycerin, it's vegetable-based glycerin. If it has gelatin, it wouldn't have gelatin, I'm sure. And if it has, it wouldn't have caramine either, because those are all animal-based. Right? So if you see that kosher, or you may see a K, the letter K and the letter D next to it. So a U inside of a circle and a D, or a K with a D, or even a K alone, kosher, then you should be okay, inshallah. Right? Check expiry dates on products as well, and also don't waste. Please, you'll see a lot of poverty when you go to Saudi Arabia. You'll see a lot of people begging, and you'll see a lot of wastage in the hotels. People will go to the hotel and they will tell themselves they've paid so much money, and they will take more food that they can eat, and they're going to leave a lot of food on the plates, and then the waiters are going to come and dump that into the bin. And when you go downstairs, you'll see people begging for a piece of bread. Right? And it's really a sad thing. It's really a sad thing. So the most you can do is don't waste yourself. Take what you can eat. And if you can't, eat it, then take it away. And when you go downstairs, maybe just give it to somebody. But try your best not to waste the food, inshallah. Right? Because of course you're in the Holy Land and you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless you as much as possible. Alright, so we've said a lot of things, and in the end, just to say that Hajj is usually for many people a one-time journey of a lifetime. And we must protect our Hajj, the rituals, our behavior, as Mufti Wasim spoke about as well, our body as well, make sure ourselves we are healthy, and ensure that what we eat is halal. And the Prophet ﷺ said that from one ummah to another is an expiation for the sins that came between them. And the Hajj Mabrur, which is what we're aiming for, accepted Hajj, brings no less a reward than Jannatul Firdaus. So let us end with dua for kafara and Surah Al-Asr. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Wal asr. Innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa ant. Nastaghfiruka wa natubu